which is a segment of the Writer's Anointing podcast. This is a platform where we give authors an opportunity to share about their books, their stories, who they are, and what it is that they want to contribute to the world with the stories that they've shared. So tonight's guest is Monica Fortson, and I am so excited to have Monica on the show today. She is the author of actually 3 books. She co-authored a chapter in an anthology, Fearless Faith, back in 2017. And now she has her children's book series, the Monty and Chris Adventures. And so I'm so excited to have Monica here with us on the show. Monica, are you here?
I am. I just shared us onto my Facebook page so people can see them both. So I was wrapping that up. I am here. I'm so excited to be here.
And I'm so excited to have you. And for everyone out there, you have opportunities to make comments, ask questions. We'll run them across the screen so that we'll have a chance to answer those questions. And we are just thankful for you joining us tonight and supporting Monica during this journey. And so already we have Alexis Jordan saying,
"Oh, that's one of my mentees."
Awesome. All right. So Monica, tell us a little bit about your writing journey. As I mentioned earlier, you co-authored a chapter in Fearless Faith, which was a nonfiction anthology where you had the opportunity to tell some of your own personal story. And it was through that story that I got a chance to actually connect with you, know more about you. And I said at that point, I'm like, based on your story, I said, this young lady and I are going to work together again. I don't know how, and I don't know when, but we're definitely going to work together. And so here we are all these years later doing your children's book series, the Monty and Chris Adventures. So tell us a little bit about how you got started, what made you decide to share your story in Fearless Faith, and how you got to where we are today, the Monty and Chris Adventures.
So writing actually started way back in high school. I was on the newspaper staff and I was our features editor. I think I've always done some journaling or something of some sort. And if you give me a test in school and you want me multiple choice or write an essay, I'm the essay student. Like, give me 13 pages of essay. Don't give me a multiple choice, true or false. So I've always enjoyed writing. And so Priscilla Hadley is actually, I call her my aunt. She is my aunt's best friend. But I grew up in Seattle with her, just thinking about her as my aunt. And so she actually had approached me in 2018 when we did Fearless Faith, so probably the end of 2017, and asked like if I wanted to contribute to a chapter. And I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. I really didn't know necessarily what I was going to write about for sure. I've always kind of been privately transparent. So I really wasn't sure like what was required of me or how much it was going to cost or anything like that. And so my aunt told me everything that we were going to write about, like what the book was about. And I loved it. And I was like, yes. And I don't have any money to do it. I'm like, I can't do it. And so she said, if it didn't cost you anything, would you tell your story? And I was like, yeah, I would definitely tell my story. And so she told me, I'll sponsor you. And I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. And so I wrote Fearless Faith, that first chapter, and it's called Bruised But Not Broken. And so we had all those homework assignments that you gave us that I didn't do. And then
because I'm the queen of giving homework.
Yes, we had deadlines and they kept sneaking up. And then the final deadline, I was like, I haven't wrote my chapter. Matter of fact, I haven't wrote anything. And so I just prayed and I was just like, God, I want to do the project, but I don't know how to do the project.
Yeah.
And I sat down in front of the computer and I just turned out everything that was part of my testimony. And I said, it's going to go through editing anyways. So I'm not going to edit myself here. I'm just going to write and just pour out everything that was there. And so my chapter is about my sexual assault. It is about going through an abusive relationship, moving to Texas. It's about being diagnosed with depression. And it talks about feeling suicidal, but it was pre-overdose. And so after we
Yeah.
published Fearless Faith, probably a few months later, I actually did suffer an overdose. And so going back now, looking back, I'm like, oh, I had all this stuff I was carrying with me that I was able to pour out on paper, but still didn't do the work inside in real life to get over that hump. And so that's what Fearless Faith is. It's just that first outpouring to really opening the door to start that healing process.
Yeah, and that's definitely what it was. And Deborah says, praise God for the testimony. And yeah, I say praise God for it, because that testimony, what you shared in Fearless Faith, really did allow me to see, one, your writing style, two, the fact that you were not afraid to share your story, because you knew that through your sharing, someone else needed to be healed. And that's a platform that I live by, right? That we write to heal. And it's not just to heal ourselves, but it's to heal others. And you took that journey. You took what you had gone through, your sexual assault, the depression, the overdose, all those things. And you actually have used those as a part of your platform, your speaking platform, your training platform, in the work that you do. And so you didn't just take it and pour it into the pages of a book. You actually did something with it. So tell us a little bit more about that before we shift gears and talk about your children's book series and how you got to that place of writing the children's book.
Yeah, so I am a detective on the Houston Police Department. And so everyone thinks police officer is supposed to be strong. We're not supposed to have any weakness. You know, we handle the worst of the worst along with the best of the best. And it is a lot to carry. And so no one really thinks about their officer having a human component to them. Feeling those emotions, being overwhelmed with those emotions. And really the stigma is mental health is kind of like a career ender, it's frowned upon. Luckily now we're kind of transitioning to a different mindset in law enforcement, but the overall stigma is still there, because you do still have a lot of officers that have been through stuff that I've been through, are currently going through stuff that I'm going through, that do not feel like they have the voice to share, because they don't know what it's going to do to their career. And so I really am transparent when it comes to speaking. So out of Fearless Faith, I started doing more ministry work and talking to youth groups and really sharing my testimony and what it's like to go through all of that. I'm open about my overdose and really taking care of yourself and what it means to have a village around you. You know, they have that saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village to keep a person healthy. And I have a team around me of not even just mental health, but as far as friends and family and prayer partners and all sorts of people that I can literally pick up the phone and call and say, I need you now. And they're going to pour into me over and over and over again. And so really my platform has really been based around doing what you need to do to stay in a healthy place. And for me, that's writing. For someone else, it might be who knows what. But for me, it's writing and being honest about what I have been through. I have shared my story, my sexual assault, while I've been teaching at our police academy. And I have had officers come to me and tell me their same experience and ask me, how did I get through it? I've shared about my overdose, and I've met other officers that have been at that place that I have been, that were just kind of like, I thought I was by myself. And so it shows me the importance of being able to have that strength to be transparent when other people don't, because you become that face of the overdose officer, the girl that was raped, the one that tried to kill themselves. You really become that face and that label that's attached to you. And a lot of times it can end up being a surface level label when people really don't know that journey behind you. And they see that the final outlook of everything, but they really don't necessarily know the road that it took, and all the bumps and the bruises and the potholes and the walls that you hop over and everything you go around in order to keep your peace and keep your mental peace, your spiritual peace, your emotional peace.
Yeah. So how did you, I hear you say, about the stigma that was attached to you, especially as a police officer, and outside of law enforcement, inside of law enforcement, once people know that you have any type of mental health issues, they try to label you. How
Yes.
did you, especially in your career, overcome some of that? Have you overcome that? Do you still bear the weight of that stigma? Do your fellow peers, view you differently now, especially after having heard your story because you've been able to share it in different platforms? Are you still carrying the weight of that stigma today?
Oh, definitely. And I think it's a career thing. It's hot and cold. You have a portion of this career field that understands mental health and the importance of it, and you have the other portion of it that still sees it as a weakness and as something that it's like the dirty little secret that you don't want to talk about, that you don't want to get out. And no one likes to look at the darker side of your career. I mean, as an officer, I work crimes against children. So I deal with child abuse in all aspects of it. And so you carry that with you. You are that person that the families call, not just to work the case for their kids, but they call you when their lights are being turned off. They call you when they don't have transportation to get to their child is. They call you when their child is acting out. I've had parents bawling their eyes out because they can't control their kids. I just need you to talk to my child. So now I take off my police officer hat and I put on my counselor hat. I put back on my teacher hat. You have so many different things that you do within this one career. And so showing any type of, I can't handle this when we are supposed to be able to handle everything, it's still frowned upon. But for me, I don't care.
Right.
My journey from my overdose to get back to my job was hard. They tried to fire me. And so I fought extremely hard, had to hire an outside lawyer. I was there with my mental health team, making sure I was back to where I needed to get to in order to effectively still do my job. And so it was funny because after my overdose, I came back to work and I was working before I was relieved of duty and before that whole process started. And so for me, I'm not going to be silent. I'm always going to talk about the effects of the career, the good and the bad, because I've experienced the whole gamut. I've had the highs of the highs and the lowest of the lows over these past 10 years of wearing the badge. And so the little dark secret is like the highlight of my conversation. And I'm just like, oh, well, if you don't like it, it's okay. Because at the end of the day, that's my testimony. And I'm never going to share anything that's not real. This is actually what I live through and still go through on a day-to-day basis. And every single time I open my mouth, somebody else can relate to some aspect of what I'm sharing, which keeps giving me the strength and the encouragement. And it keeps giving me that confirmation that what I'm doing is what exactly God has told me to do. And that's share my story.
And what I love about that, especially when you say, the dark parts, right, of our lives, of our careers, the darkness that we walk through, God uses those same things and he illuminates them, right? He will shine a light on them for others to be able to see that there's a pathway out. And you talked about using writing as a pathway out for you, as a way to be able to heal through some of the things that you walk through. And you transitioned. And some people would think it's a sharp transition to go from telling a story like yours, right? Being able to share something so vile that happened to you, so painful, but then being able to take all that and say, you know what, I want to shift to the brighter side of life. And being that you do work crimes against children, it made me think about how your children's book series is actually a light for kids. Right? Is being able to give children an opportunity to see that they can dream again, right? Their dreamscape can be opened up again. They can go on these fabulous adventures that maybe in real life, they may never be able to undertake, but you sharing these amazing stories for children have allowed these kids to be able to go into a whole new world. And so I want to shift gears a little bit, and we'll probably go back and forth because, that's how we do it, right? Whatever comes up, we talk about it. But I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about the Monty and Chris adventures. And so everyone out there, thank you for joining. Please feel free to share this out on your pages, invite people to join us. And if you have kids and you want your kids to join now to be able to hear some of the fascinating stories that Monica has already created and the ones that she will create. And y'all, she has like 100, and I kid you not, like 100 stories for kids. So Monica Fortson is not going anywhere anytime soon. She will be writing books for the rest of her life to fill your children's lives with such adventure and amazement and wonder. So do you have the books with you to show us?
I do. So the first one is Fearless Faith. That was the first one. And so that is the first. How do I? Oh, my camera goes this way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right there. Right there.
So we started off. So we did Christmas in July with Chris Meet Santa.
And so Chris Meet Santa.
First book. And so you can see like me and my little brother in there. And I mean, Calvin did such an awesome job.
And by Calvin, she means Calvin Reynolds, who is the awesome and amazing illustrator with the Cocoon to Wings publishing team. He illustrated her story for her.
We have Santa Claus. That's right there. And I mean, we get to see all sorts of stuff. And so Meet Santa isn't just about Christmas. Santa really teaches a good life lesson in that book. And so you get to see me and my little brother. So Monty is me, Monica, and Chris is my brother, Christopher, my younger brother. He is also one of the authors on the series, in theory.
Yeah. Meaning she just slapped his name on the book. No, but he's contributed quite a bit of the ideas for the story as well. She's just the head writer.
Yeah, that is him. So he said, if you're going to use my likeness, I need my name. So I said, that's okay. But that's where I get a lot of the other portions of the book we'll talk about. But Santa, Meet Santa really just kind of warmed my heart. I wrote 5 children's books and started 5 children's books really before I approached you to say, I really want to do children's series. Yeah. Because when I started writing children's stories, it was part of my healing process from my overdose and not being able to work and just fighting this beast to get back to doing what I felt like my identity was. And I was Detective Monica Fortson. That's all I knew how to do. That's all I knew who I was. And so I reverted back to something that brought me comfort when I was in high school, and that was writing. And so since I worked with children, and children are so innocent when we allow them that space to be children, I decided to do children's books because it had nothing to do with my job, my career, anything. It was just children's books. And my favorite time of the year is Christmas holidays. I don't care about gifts, anything like that. I like the food. I like the decorations. Yes. And so I said, let's do Christmas. And somebody came up with Christmas in July. And so we did the book and Calvin illustrated it and we did Christmas in July. Oh. And so that was the first children's book that was published. But we also did Monty and Chris Go to the Rodeo. And so our children's series is kind of 2-part. We have an aspect of travel because I looked at my career and I looked at where I patrolled. And I patrolled low income areas, high crime areas. And a lot of the kids that I came across and met had never been outside of Houston. Yeah. And they really couldn't afford to go outside of Houston. So just backtracking a little bit, while I was an officer, I did a period of community service and I was a youth liaison for one of our areas, our high crime areas, me and another officer. And during that time period, we did the Explorers program. And Alexis is on here as one of my explorers. I followed her since 9th grade, and she's now in her 20s. So my kids really follow me. But we had kids that me and my partner made sure they ate because they didn't have food once they got home. When we were working with the food banks, they were taking foods home to their parents. They were reaching out because the lights got cut off. They didn't have the electricity at home. There's a lot of things they didn't experience. And so I was very blessed to be raised in a family that my parents could afford to send me to summer camp. they could afford to take these vacations with us. And so me and my brother said, for those kids that can't travel, we need to allow them to travel through the pages of our book. We need to take them places around the world that they could only dream of going, places that they never thought about outside the United States. And so we have on our list of travel part of the series, like going to the Great Wall, the Great Barrier Reef, Australia, the Sydney Opera House, all sorts of different places where typically minority children don't get exposed to. And so that was my goal, was to expose our children in our community to places around the world that they might only be able to see in the pages of a book. And hopefully that would put that spark into them as kids, so that as they grow up, they remember, I read about this. Now I want to see this in person. So what do I need to do with my life in order to be able to go to this place in real life and as an adult or when I get older? And because I want to see it. I've seen it in children's book and now I want to see it in person.
And that's so key.
Yeah,
that's really key. And let me interject really quick, because there's comments just rolling in, and I want to acknowledge some of these comments. You mentioned Alexis before. She said, a strong Black queen. I love and will forever cherish everything you've done for me, Monica. I think that is powerful, what you've done to be able to not just, give counsel, but you give light to people as well, just through sharing your story. And we have you're a bright light for those going through their own darkness. Kay says, God put you through to get you to keep pushing, sister. And then Deborah says, ooh, all our grandsons love the book.
Yes, that's my aunt.
Oh, that's your aunt. So all the grandsons love the book. And one of the things when you first came to me with this series, it took me back to my own childhood when, look, y'all, I'm not even going to acknowledge my age at this present moment, but I'm getting ready to have a birthday. But when I was a child, there was a series of African-American books that my mom used to buy. And there was like a book every month that would just show up, for me. And they were stories about Black history figures, everything African-American. And it was so inspiring to me as a child, because it did allow me to see that I could be one of these great people, right? That look just like me. And so when you came to me with this series, I felt like, oh my gosh, she is taking me back to my childhood when I got to see people that look like me traveling the world, exploring and doing new things, Black people doing things I had never seen before, right? And so the fact that you have worked in communities that were underserved, right? Low income, and you saw the need for children to be able to have these opportunities to explore life outside of their community, it just made me feel like this is something that is going to transcend time. And so I'm super proud of you for creating this book series for children, because it's not just about the travel piece of it, but it is introducing children to little known, I call them little known Black history facts, right? And the amazing part is they don't just center on people that we hear about all the time. These are actually historical figures that come out of your own family lineage. Yes. And you have an amazing family lineage. I mean, your people they were some of the first to do a lot of things. Yeah. And so let's talk about that, dive into that more, and why you felt it was important to highlight some of these individuals and really, shine that light on your family as well, because you have a very powerful family. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So the second part, we had travel, and we wanted to do people and places. That was the theme of the series, people and places, with some like special edition books thrown in there, which would have been like the Christmas book. And so the goal is to turn out a place and a people book within the same year. And so we had big dreams of doing like 6 books in the first year. And then I really learned what it really meant to
that's a little tough.
Illustrated children's book. And Calvin really taught me a lot. And I was like, okay, so 2 is good. we'll go 2. And so we did a special edition with Santa, but we really wanted to do a Black history piece. And so I looked at when the second book would be finished illustrating and when we will be publishing. And it was right around the time I live in Houston, Texas. So Houston has the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And it's major. It's like a big deal. It's been around since my mom was a kid. It's got thousands of volunteers. I am on our speakers committee. And so when I go out for the rodeo to speak, I talk about my grandma. And my grandma was the first Black,
Oh,
that's my,
calling.
that is my cell phone. Let me turn it off because Wonderful Apple is connected on everything. So if it rings on my phone, it's going to ring on my laptop and my watch.
That's why I turned everything off at the beginning. I understand.
Yeah. So she was the first Black to compete in barrel racing at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo in 1969 and in 1970 before she passed away. And so the easiest and the funnest thing to write about was going to be family, because this is where I come from. And so when I speak for the rodeo, I actually have her clothes that I bring. I let the kids touch her clothes, touch her shirts, the picture. I actually have it on the wall. That's my
Verna Booth Hightower.
Yes, that is her taking the barrel at the rodeo in 69. And so me and my brother said, let's do a book about grandma. We never got to meet her. And so Go to the Rodeo is that book that's about my grandmother. And so we go back to 1969 and we get to meet Verna Boots Hightower. Yes. And so Calvin did this awesome job just showing this picture of my grandma.
She looks so much like her.
Yeah, she does. I got to figure out which way to go. There it goes.
There you go.
Yeah. And so he illustrated her awesome. And it's so authentic. So the saddle is Western. The boots are the same. The breast collar on the horse. Because the community that I was really writing to was the rodeo community. Because when I interviewed for my speaking position, the people I was interviewing with for the already work for the rodeo did not know that history. Wow. They didn't know that my grandma was the first Black to compete, and they weren't even sure. And so we wrote the book about my grandma and barrel racing. And in the back of the book is a whole biography that's for all ages. And it talks about her life and her career and what she did and her children and outside of rodeo. And so you have the pictures for the little ones, you have the words of the book for those that are learning to read, and then you get to the back. And it's a book that you can hold on to and pass down to your children, and they can pass down to their children, because it really is for all ages.
Yes.
That's the first people book that we did.
And I love that. And I love the illustrations. Like I always say, and y'all know I brag on Calvin because he's the lead illustrator for Cocoon Twins Publishing. But like what he did with Go to the Rodeo was beyond. I mean, from the horses to the way he made Verna, the way that he illustrated the scenes and her taking that barrel. It was so exciting. And I felt like I got a chance to live, during that time. Yeah. When she did that. And you really give not just children, but adults, because here I am a full grown adult and I'm so fascinated by these stories because I had never heard of Verna Boots Hightower. Right. Yeah. And I want for the kids in my family to be able to know that, hey, there was the first Black barrel racer, right? Yeah. The first. And I happen to know her granddaughter.
Yeah. It's awesome because they it touches on the Diamond L. So the Diamond L was one of the places, not the only one, but one of the places that Blacks could compete professionally in rodeo here in Houston as my mom was a child growing up, because back then it was still really kind of segregated. And so when you look at the history of Houston and race relations and rodeo, and you look at the old Westerns, you don't see a lot of us, but we really were there. You have the Diamond L Roping and Riding Club, which my grandparents helped start with some of the other people that were in the club. And then the Diamond L itself was owned by the Sweeney family. And so there's a whole history there that a lot of people in Houston don't even know about. And so where the Diamond L was back in the day with my mom growing up, it's still kind of the general area that Diamond L Roping and Riding Club is still located. And that's at my grandfather's property. And so we have this whole history of Black rodeo that's still prevalent today. Like when we trail ride, we still have the old school wagons. We have the half-liter horses that pull our wagon. It's got the wooden wheels. We still have all of that today that still happens leading up to Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And it's really a year-round thing because you have clubs that are associated with the rodeo, and then you have what we call independent clubs. And so there's trail rides year round, there's horses year round. Two of my cousins, I wrote them in the book. She still rides horses. Her and her family have property, and her kids are learning how to ride horses. So it's something that she's continued to pass down to her family. I have a child now, and as soon as she can get big enough to sit on a horse, I've taken her out there. She's looked at the horse. My horse has smelled her. He's touched her nose on her face, and Lyric kind of freaked out. But
I can imagine.
I'm gonna keep passing that down. But we come from a family of first, and so I have my grandma on my mom's side. That was my mom's mother. And she passed away in 70. And then I have a book about my grandfather, my dad's dad, and him being the first Black chef back in the Pacific Northwest to be a part of a lot of these prestigious chef. I don't really know what they call them. They're not really clubs, but societies, and very, very prestigious, where he was from Louisiana, and he became culinary arts. And in order to keep moving up, he went and he learned how to be a chef. And then he started teaching at the college there, teaching culinary arts and being over that. And so when I look at what my grandfather did also, and all these things that he joined, I'm like, oh, that's another book, because our kids want to cook. They want to learn stuff. So let's do some recipes. I have my Aunt Vivian, my grandma Boots' sister. She was a lot of firsts as well for nursing, Black nurses, and working for the government. And she was working on, started helping research for some of the diseases that can be passed down. And so she did a lot of work in that. That's a whole nother book, because we have kids that want to be nurses in our family. I've got uncles that Green Beret that passed away, but military. He was like one of the highest ranks positions in the military that you could go through back then. My Uncle Alvin, that's my grandma Boots' brother. And so that's a whole nother book, because my brother is military. So there's so many branches of my family that have directed me in my book writing to really start to give me the foundation. But we also came up with books that you don't necessarily learn the history about in school. And so my brother decided to stay away from like Martin Luther King and stuff like that, because we hear about him. So we have in the line of books, we want to write about freedom writers. We want to write about Medgar Evers. We want to write about the Little Rock Nine. Some of the things that you don't know, and some of the people that you don't hear about. And that's just like tip of the iceberg. Because I think the list I sent you was like 100 books, but I got like them that aren't on there.
The list, and I tell you, the list was 100 titles and concepts. And I said, "What? This is amazing!" But some of the comments that have already come through, especially as you were talking about go to the rodeo, I saw, "Wow, what a legacy!" Because you do have such an amazing, rich history and legacy, just right there in your own family. Others said, "That's incredible." Calvin popped in. Calvin said, that Go to the Rodeo is one of the best books I've ever illustrated, and thanks for the opportunity. And he bragged on that book a lot. Like he was like, wow, this is one of my best. And I love it too. And just the whole experience of working with you in the publishing process, was just so easy, and just so Nicole says, adopt me. She wants to be a part of that legacy too.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. But it was just, such an easy, smooth, time of working with you, because you're so fun, you're so engaging, right? And I can see how kids would love, to be around you, your energy. And I believe you've done some like virtual events where kids can learn more about the book as well. And, you know, especially as things start to open up a little bit more, hopefully you'll have more opportunities to go out and do some vending events where you can actually, you know, the people can see you and, you know, physically purchase the books. But we've been running across the screen where people can purchase the book. So there's a couple of links there to be able to purchase the books. Her first book as well, Fearless Faith, is on Amazon. You can purchase it on Barnes and Noble. It's kind of wherever books are sold online. You can go ahead and purchase there as well. Fearless Faith was actually the very first book outside of my own that Cocoon Twins published. So that was an amazing experience.
It was fun.
It was fun and crazy. We were like, "Whoa, God, help us," because we don't know what we're doing. But it ended up being such a fabulous book. And so I want to switch gears again a little bit, because with your children's book series, and you are building out these stories, right? And so the next one, since you've done People, might be a story about travel again. We don't know yet. We're just kind of taking it as the flow goes. But you also are looking to step back into either nonfiction by sharing some more of your personal testimony of some things that you walked through, as well as a fiction series. And anybody who knows me, I love fiction. I love it. And so when you came to me with this idea, I was like, girl, write it now, please, because I need to read this book. But tell us a little bit about some of the things that you have upcoming outside of the future children's books. What are some of the things that you're thinking about? So your fan base, and you have quite a big fan base. They're all like chiming in and commenting. I can't even read the comments that fast. But share a little bit more about your writing journey, what's coming up next. And then I'm going to throw out some other questions and then have you give some advice to up and coming authors as well.
Definitely. So writing for me is, I wrote a quote. Oh, I turned off my phone. I made a little quote today, and it says, writing for me is like food to my soul. Mm-hmm. Being able to take words and move them around where they create a portal that takes my readers into a whole nother world is just like where my heart is. And you can take writing and you can take a story, and that journey, you can rewrite it over and over and over again, and it never gets old. And so just having that imagination and that creativity really has allowed me to write all across the board, all genres. You tell me something to write about, I'm going to give it to you. You want me to write curriculum? I'll write curriculum. You need me to write an advice column? I'll give you an advice column. Whatever it is you want me to write about, I'll tap in and I'll do it. And so I've done nonfiction, which I definitely will go back at some point in time and do nonfiction. We talked about really, my pregnancy was difficult. It was a long journey. It was a difficult journey. I spent the most of it in the hospital with a very, very high risk pregnancy, and almost losing Lyric at 24 weeks. And so I want to go back and write about what it's like to be a mom during this time period, during COVID, having COVID, my first trimester, not knowing I was pregnant, really creating this healing space through nonfiction and sharing what it was like, because I learned so much from my nurses that other moms struggle with, that I was struggling with. And we couldn't get together like they normally would because of COVID, and we all had to stay in our rooms. And so I wanted to create a book, a safe space where women could read what I went through in a very transparent, real, and blunt way, not necessarily what society would say you're supposed to feel when you're pregnant, but very, very real. So to let them know that it's okay to have these feelings, and this is how you keep pushing through. So I'm definitely going to dive back into nonfiction. But my career, I've been on for 10 years. I've been through so much from start to finish, and I really wanted to keep healing from that. And my job has been like a love-hate relationship. It's like, I look at it and I'm like, oh, it's like cheddar and jalapeno chips. You've got cheddar, which tastes so good, and then you've got jalapeno, which is spicy and it catches you off guard. That's my career. Yes. That's like my job. And so I started writing the Hunter series, and it's really based around my life, my career. It is fiction, but it has nonfiction elements in it that I went through in my career. So the people are not real people. Some of the situations are real. I work in special victims, so it's going to have that theme around it. But she is a woman detective, and she is really just battling this culture of police. She's has her own life struggle she goes through. And so that is the series that I'm working on. I thought big, just like I thought like 6 books a year. I was like, yeah, 10 books for this series. Then I was like, 3. I
Let
think
me
I'll
be realistic. Let me be realistic, because yeah, writing. It's funny because so many people think, I'm just gonna whip this book out, and there's a lot of people who can do it. Like, God bless them, because I am not one of them. I'm literally, I tell everybody, I'm led by the Holy Spirit, and if He says I can't write right now, I just can't write.
Yeah.
Okay, I know people have been waiting on other books from me, and I'm like, right now, I'm pouring everything into everybody else who wants to write a book. So I don't have anything to give. But it is not as easy as everyone thinks it is, unless this is like your full-time career, right? And there's many amazing authors who I love dearly that this is their full-time career and they write. And I know that that's something that you eventually want to transition to as well, because you are a wealth of writing knowledge. You are a writer at heart, right? So much so, y'all, that I brought her onto the Cocoon Twins publishing team, because I'm like, you know what? We need ghostwriters, we need content writers, we need curriculum developers, and she could do it all. I was like, come on, girl.
And I'm so thankful for it. I love it. Writing really is my peace. That is, it is really just like the silver lining. If I can't do anything else, it's writing. If it's my personal writing in my journals, if it's like my homework assignments that Minister D gives me for my life coaching, it is my healing place. It's my creative space. It is, it's an area where I can be anybody I want to be. And that's what writing really does. And so it's just like this love and this passion. And so that is my goal, is to transition out of law enforcement at some time and really do writing full time. And so I have written curriculum for HPD. I handle our curriculum now. I've written curriculum for the state of Texas. I'm just like, okay, I've had the chance. I've been blessed to have all these opportunities to experience different writing types. And so like my children's books, I can knock a children's book out in like 2 days. I'm like, I'm okay with that, because I'll sit down, I'll research, I won't do anything else for 2 days. But when it comes to the other stuff that really starts to pull on the heartstrings, that taps into reality, it takes a while, because I started Hunter like last year before the retreat. And I'm just now like first chapter. I've got everything, the ideas, I've got it mapped out. But the meat and potatoes of the true story, it is draining, especially when it kind of mimics your own life and trauma that you've experienced. It is draining. It's fun. It's draining.
But it will drain you. And this storyline, because she shared it with me before she started writing any of it, and I was like, "Oh, girl, you're gonna need some therapy." To be able to get through this storyline, because like you said, while it is written as fiction, which means fake, right? For some, Erica says, can't wait to read it. I can't wait for her to write it so I can read it too. But fiction in some ways always has an element of reality. And those of us who do write fiction know that it's so much easier to share our lives, right? But kind of hide behind these characters, because it's a great way to be able to embellish, a great way to change the circumstances of a situation, right? That we may have walked through and we maybe wish we didn't go through it. And so we don't want to put our character through it, or we want to put our character through it, right? And so it is draining, but it is so rewarding at the end. And this story right here, I'm telling you, she is going to have several sessions with Minister D, who is our soul coach in so many ways, to be able to help her navigate through sharing, because this female detective, she goes through some stuff. And Monica, being in that same position in her career, has gone through some stuff. And so her being able to pour it out on the pages of this Hunter series is going to be exciting. And I cannot wait for that to come. But tell us a little bit more about some of the other things that you will be doing, if you're having anything upcoming where people can find you, if you're going to be doing any other interviews, because I really want people to be able to stay connected with you. Again, we're running her information across the screen, but I want you to be able to share, how people can get in touch with you. And I also want you to give some advice for writers. One, just nonfiction and fiction writers in general. And then also for children's books writers. Okay. Just give, 2 or 3 pieces of advice for each group that you would share, especially based on your own writing journey and what you discovered and encountered along the way.
Yeah. So coming up, I'm coming off maternity leave and going back to work. That's the first thing coming up. But outside of my writing, I have started my LLC. And so I contract with you. And then I have my own company as well. And so part of that is really just me being my own life brand. And so I'm wrapping up my webpage. It will be monicafortson.com. I've already bought the domain for it. I'm just finishing those last touches on the website. But it has my journal. So I will have an online journal, which is really like a blog, but everybody does a blog. This is more intimate. This is more letting you see who I am, really a peek behind the curtain, and just an in-depth conversation with myself that I'm allowing the world to open my journal, my diary, and see what it's like to be me and the struggles and some of the things day to day. But it'll also have aspects of when I travel. It's really just like my life within that journal. And on that same webpage, you can put in a request if you would like me to come speak. And so I definitely, I love speaking from a ministry standpoint because, hands down, God has brought me through everything. Every single challenge that I have been up against, he has literally carried me through from the worst of the worst to the best of the best. And so there's no way I would be sitting here without everything that God has brought me through. And that will always be the foundation of what I speak about. But I understand that everybody wants that speak. Right. So I speak from everywhere. I do share a lot about my testimony. I speak with youth groups. I'm getting back into that, doing youth speaking and motivational speaking to stay on track. I talk about my career, what it's like to be in law enforcement. I do speaking for the community in recognizing sexual abuse, recognizing domestic violence, what you can do to help someone that's in those situations. I speak with parents about how to navigate when their child has disclosed that something has happened to them, how you go through that and how you navigate through that and what it's like to go through investigations. And then I have a whole training aspect. I've been training officers across the state of Texas since 2015 now. Okay. So it's quite a while now, and how to investigate these types of investigations. But I've also added in a mental health component, and that's more along the lines of a training from my overdose and what it was like being an officer going through that, and the importance of learning when to let go, when it's time to walk away from the career, what it's like to have vicarious trauma from working this career. And by no means, I'm not a mental health expert. My expertise and what gives me the credentials is what God has brought me through. It is literally my life that I talk from. Yes, I have my psychiatrist, I have my therapist, I have my life coach, I've got my prayer circle around me. And people are like, oh, that's a lot, but it takes that much. Yes. A regular person should have all these people because mental health is so important. And to have a village around you that is supportive of you, that will still tell you when you messed up, but that can be there at the drop of a dime is so important. And these are the things that I share and the tools that I share. And through that, I decided that I really wanted to be one of our peer support officers. So I'm a peer support officer for HPD as well. So for my officers that are watching, if you need someone, I am on our peer support team. And so those are some of the things that I do just outside of my regular writing. I really don't have anything coming up for sure. Two of my sorority sisters that own the media block, they're going to be doing a book, like a book fair. I think twins told me it's June or July. I'll post it on my social media. But I'll tell them I will be there. And so you will have a chance to get the Money and Chris series, the first 2 books. Fearless Faith will be there. You'll have a chance to chat with me, what it's like to write, all that wonderful stuff. We'll have fun giveaways at the table. So as soon as the girls let me know when the media block is hosting it, I will definitely post it on my social media to let everybody else know. But right now it's kind of that transition period. I'm waiting for the world to open back up so that I can start having, I have never been able to do my book launch party. We wanted to have Santa's Secret Workshop for Monty and Chris Meet Santa. So hopefully this year we will be able to do Santa's Secret Workshop where you can come and you can buy the books, you can get your photos taken with Santa Claus, and everything is representative of the Black community. Yes. So that was one thing that was very important to me. I grew up and I didn't see a lot of me in books. And so I wanted to make sure that my kids that were around me saw themselves in the reflection of the books. And so it's so funny because my friends, one of my friends, Mignon, she has a son and a daughter. And her daughter says, that is her and that's her brother Josiah. That's not Monty and Chris. That is me. That's me, mommy. That's me on the horse. That's me meeting Santa, and that's Josiah. And so that just warms my heart because it's doing exactly what I wanted the series to do. And so representation for me was extremely important. And it's something that I'm going to continue to carry. And it doesn't stop with just having African-American characters. You're going to see, hopefully Calvin can do it. You'll see kids in wheelchairs. You will see
Calvin can do anything.
Yes.
Calvin can do anything. We have put him to the test and he has proven himself.
You see all sorts of cultures. I mean, Monty and Chris, they go to Indian celebrations, Middle Eastern celebrations. They have Chinese New Year. So you will see authentic cultural representation through these books that our children don't necessarily get to see. And so that's kind of what's coming up in the works over the next couple years or so. But the Hunter series is really what I'm working on now. That will be probably before, well, children's book is written because I've got four in the pipeline that we can choose from. But as far as works, the Hunter series is really the next thing that I'm going to be pushing. I will always have Monty and Chris. They're in my heart. They're my healing place. But Hunter is it needs to get out, and so that is my main focus is wrapping Hunter up by the end of the year so that we can drop Hunter in the first quarter of next year.
Woo! I'm excited about that. I'm excited. All right. So we have a few minutes left. And if you have questions that you want to ask, type them into the chat. We'll highlight them. If you want to make any other comments about this awesome, amazing, wonderful Black woman, Monica Fortson, feel free to share. But I want you to give, Alexis says, congratulations. I want you to share just 2 or 3 tips again for writers who, they might be new to this whole space of writing. Mickey says, so proud of you. You're an amazing person. I want you to share, what advice, what tips would you give to someone who was sharing their personal testimony as you did in Fearless Faith? And y'all need to get that because I'm telling you, there's stories that touch me, but don't stay with me. Her story touched me and stayed with me to the point where I prayed and I said, God, there has to be a connection there. I know I'm going to work with her again. I feel it because her story, her personal testimony was so impactful. It sat in my soul. And I want you to tell that person who wants to be able to share their story, doesn't necessarily know how to write it, knows that, they need to share this in order to, 1, heal themselves, but 2, be able to heal that other little girl or that other little boy who may have faced whatever that trauma is that they experienced. What would you give as advice to that person?
The first thing is pray about it. Because not every trauma is meant to be shared past you and God.
That's exactly. I'm so glad you said that. Yes.
Yeah, you have to know what he has placed in your spirit to share and what he has placed in your spirit to stay private. Yes. That is a major thing because with transparency comes attack from the enemy. Mind you, Fearless Faith published, my transparency, overdose happened within 2 months because the attack was that real. Because what I shared was exactly what God put on my heart to share. And the enemy does not want us to share anything. He does not want us to have that healing area that God places in us, especially when He's giving you an assignment to do and to bring forth and to have people around you in your circle break those generational, those family curses. The devil gets upset. And that's exactly what he did when I shared with Fearless Faith. And so you have to be in a place where you have started your healing journey. I had already been in the tears because Fearless Faith means that much to me.
Don't you start.
Already been in a place of counseling before I did Fearless Faith. But what I did was step away because I felt like I had it all together and I didn't need it anymore. So I came off my medication because I do take antidepressant. I take off my medication. I stopped doing my counseling. I was like, I got this. I feel great. And then bam, everything hit because Fearless Faith pulled on all those areas that I said, I'm going to fix it this much, just enough to feel good. But that deep hurt, I'm going to leave that alone because it hurts too bad. And so it tapped into that area. And so the first thing you need to do is pray about it and get exactly what God wants you to do. The second thing that I would advise is putting your village around you before you ever put pen to paper. You need to be able to have those people around you and share with those people what it is you're going to write about so they can start that prayer circle around you before you start writing.
Yeah.
And the next thing that I would say,
I saw Morris made a comment. She said, that's good. Both of those points are so good. So good.
I see it now. Yeah. And then write, really just write. It doesn't have to have a format. It doesn't have to be grammatically correct. Just write, because when you first start releasing those emotions, you're going to do the ugly cry. It's not going to be right. And that's what you have Cocoon to Wings for, is the editing. That's what they're there for. They're there for the editing down, the formatting, everything. You are there to provide all the content. You're there to provide the tears, the laughter, the smiles, the lessons learned, the healing process. And then the fourth thing is to keep with that healing circle, the counseling, whatever you need to do. Because as your book comes forth and once it's published, you're going to have people approach you that are not supportive. Not everybody that has commented to me about Fearless Faith has been supportive. I've had people tell me that my rape was my fault.
Girl, tell me who these people are so I can go get them.
I've had people call me names. I've been everything underneath the sun. I've had people tell me I shouldn't wear the badge anymore because everything I've gone through. I mean, the whole 9 yards. And had I not kept people around me to tell me, you have done exactly what you're supposed to be doing. This is what you're supposed to be doing, to keep pouring into me in those hard places, those down times, I wouldn't have picked up and kept going with that. I wouldn't have wrote another and been working on another like nonfiction. I would have left it alone. But that's what I would say as far as if you want to write something in the lines of Fearless Faith. For children's books are really your own imagination. Whatever you want your children's book to be, your children's book can be. It doesn't even have to be a kid topic. You know, when you think about like mental health, you think that kids don't understand, but they start understanding from the time that they're tiny. Lyric is 10 weeks old. When I've cried, she gets mad. She can feel those feelings. And so you have kids that pick up on stuff at such an early age. So anything that you want can be a children's story. You just have to be open for the editing. I knew that children's books were not in my lane after I talked to Calvin, and I was like, you have how many words on a page? What? Are you sick? And then when I first saw the first draft of the Santa's book, I was like, but where's the rest of my book? Like,
we had to cut it up.
There's only like a third of the book that's here. But then when you see it all together. And so one thing I made sure I had to keep telling myself is children's book is Calvin's expertise. And so I need him to teach me what to do to be successful in this genre of writing, because I am new to this. I might know everything else because I know everything. I keep telling myself I know everything, but children's book is not what I know. And so you have to be open to be teachable and to be guided through and to really trust the process.
Yes.
I got tested with that rodeo book. the Monty and Chris Go to Rodeo tested me to the most because
it tested all of us.
Ooh, yes. I think all three of us were like, ooh, this book is done.
Oh,
but the product is
really
awesome. So you have to be able to trust the process.
Yeah. And I'll add one to that because like you said about you can have, and Amaris does exactly trust the process. I saw Alexis had posted a comment too before. She said, tell me too. That related to, you know, who said that? Yeah, we know what that comment was. But one of the things I will say, especially if you are new to writing a children's book, yes, you can use any topic, right? And really gear it towards children, but you have to remember, identify your audience, right? Identify the age range that you are writing for. I tell everybody, I do not write children's books. I do not have children. Yes, I have children in my family, but that is not the audience that I relate to. So I can help you write a children's story, but I will tell you exactly what you need to do to be able to write the story successfully, right? And you want to make sure that you know that audience, you know that age range, you talk to them, you ask them questions, you talk to their parents, right? And then you have to write from that lens. You cannot write as an adult, writing to an adult, but writing about a children's topic. You cannot do it and be successful. Amaris James, she's another one of our children's book authors as well. She's on here. She knows, right? You have to be able to write to the level that you're trying to serve. And if you don't know that level, and if you don't interact with them, now is the time, right? Start doing little focus groups to talk to kids in that age range and be able to understand what are the topics, what's interesting to them, what's resonating with them, to be able to actually make sure that you understand how to write to their level so that the story, not just is fun for them, but it actually leaves a message with them, right? It leaves something with them, this indelible mark that they will go back and say, wow, like I learned so much from Meet Santa, or I learned so much from Go to the Rodeo that now, like as a child, I realize I can dream about anything. And you know what? It might actually come true. So that's what you want to do to make sure that you're able to write from that space. Oh, hey, Kathy. Kathy says, congratulations, Stephanie and Monica. Kathy is one of my old managers, like from way back in the days when I used to work in corporate America. She was one of my first African-American female managers, and she groomed me and she made sure that I was successful. So thank you for joining us, Kathy. And all these years we've been friends, and I'm just so grateful to see you show up. But that's that village, right? Those people that show up for you and support you just like you have. And so we are like over time. This has been so fantastic. I didn't even realize that was past 8. Yeah, but this has been such an honor, Monica. I just love you. I love the stories that you share. I love how you impact people no matter what their age is. I'm excited for everything that you have coming up, and I'm just grateful to even be a part of your life outside of being your publisher, being a sister, being a friend, being Lyric's imaginary auntie, right? Because I claimed her as my little niece. But I'm just so excited to see everything that God is getting ready to do through you. And it is going to be more than you can possibly imagine. And because of the fact that you are so willing to share your story and be open with your story, you know to prepare, right, for what's to come, because you know that the enemy is hot on your heels because of the grace that's over your life. And so you know that you have to stay prepared, stay prayed up, keep your prayer circle around you at all times, because God is really getting ready to elevate you to this place where there's going to be so much more exposure, and you want to be ready for that. So not just trust in the process, but trust God in the process so that you are firmly planted when all the things that he's starting to unveil come to pass in your life. So I just want to impart that to you and just say thank you for being a part of our show, this episode of Storytime with Stephanie. Thank you to all of Monica's fans that showed up. And girl, you had a whole lot of them.
I've been texting people all week long. Y'all better tune in.
And they tune in, and we'd love to have you all join us every other Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Storytime with Stephanie, where we have a variety of different authors to come on and just share. Like I said, this is a platform to make sure that authors get an opportunity to share their stories and their platform. And so I'm grateful that God has used me to be able to create this. And I just cannot wait to see what comes next of it. So, and what comes next for you. So thank you all for joining us this evening. God bless you, Monica. God bless you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.